Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anchor. Let's dive in.
Welcome back, everyone. On the 15th of January, I sat down with a roll of paper and 4 marker pens, and I drew a vision board. Not the Pinterest kind. A proper, scrappy, hand-drawn map of where I wanted 2026 to take me. 4 quadrants. Work and purpose in the top left. Money and security, top right. Life and adventure, bottom left. Relationships and self, bottom right. And underneath, in big block capitals, one line. In 2026, I am building a life that feels good deep within myself. It is now the end of April, 4 months in. And I want to talk about what has actually happened, because some of it I genuinely did not see coming, and some of it I had a strange feeling was coming weeks before it arrived.
That is a much more personal opener than your usual format, Ben. Why this episode? Why now?
Because I think the broadcast industry, and frankly, anyone trying to launch something new in artificial intelligence right now, needs honesty more than it needs another deck. Everyone is wearing 12 hats. Everyone is oscillating between concept, product, commercial model, partnerships, intellectual property, the data science build, broadcast sales, thought leadership. And nobody is talking about the iceberg underneath all of it.
The iceberg.
Yep. People see the shiny slideware, the webinar, the podcast episode, the LinkedIn post. That is the 10% above the waterline. The 90% underneath, the late nights, the conversations that go nowhere, the moments of genuine doubt, the kindness of people who pick up the phone when you need a steer. That is the part nobody sees. And that is the part that actually builds the year.
So this is the Inside Track episode.
Exactly. The vision board, the pivotal months, the people who have quietly shaped this year already. Let me start with the board itself, because it has shaped everything since. The work quadrant said, Broadcast Artificial Intelligence Specialist, Global Operator, Independence and Freedom, Invitation Offers. Note the word invitation. I did not write pitch. I did not write hustle. I wrote invitation. Because I wanted 2026 to be a year where the right work came toward me, not where I chased everything that moved.
That is a real shift from how most consultants describe their pipeline.
It is a deliberate shift. Life and adventure was about finding peace and resets in the outdoors, better sleep, clearer mind. And the line that I actually underlined twice, stop people-pleasing, small circles, more focus, more accountability.
2 underlines on stop people pleasing is quite something.
That one was for me to remember when April came around and I had said yes to too many things again. The relationships quadrant was about trusting gut, getting in tune with emotions, only making connections with people who feel aligned and not pushing on closed doors. If a door does not open, it is not for you. Move on.
Take me into January then. With that board on the wall, what was the actual state of play?
Honestly, slightly chaotic. I had come back from Japan in October with serious conversations on the table and a hybrid go-to-market plan for the nowcasting work. I had spent late 2025 putting out the foundational episodes on this podcast. The ones explaining what nowcasting actually is, why fast channels are the proving ground, why generative artificial intelligence is the wrong tool for the real broadcast revenue problem. By the time I drew that board, I was sitting on a concept, a Berkeley capstone grade methodology, and a podcast audience that was starting to notice. But I had no signed pilot, no nowcasting revenue yet, and too many simultaneous fronts open.
You wrote yourself a note around that time, I remember, about the strategic risk of running on too many fronts at once.
I did. I had to be honest with myself. I was oscillating between concept work, product work, commercial model design, intellectual property protection, partnership development, the data science build, direct broadcast sales, and thought leadership through this show. That is 8 discrete jobs, and I was trying to do them all in the same week. Something had to give, or something had to break through.
And you had a feeling about which one would break first.
This is going to sound a bit strange on a broadcast podcast. I had a quiet prophecy in my head that Chinese New Year would mark the moment things started to deliver. I cannot rationalise it. I just had a sense that around the 17th of February, the energy would shift. And I had a second feeling, a kind of premonition really, that April would bring another lift. Not a forecast based on pipeline data, more like a knowing.
And then what actually happened?
February happened, and the pivotal moment was the 18th, which was the day before Chinese New Year, when I went live with the OTTRED Artificial Intelligence in Media think tank, a free webinar, hosted alongside Chris Redmond and the 3 think tank leaders who have genuinely shaped my thinking this year, Adriaan, Maria and Karel. The topic was nowcasting in media from theory to practice. We just dropped an episode of this podcast on the same day as the pre-read.
Talk about those 3 for a moment, because they sit deep under the waterline of this story.
They do. And I want to name that openly, because Adriaan, Maria and Karel have given me steer after steer, on goodwill, on kindness, on the strength of their own deep experience in this industry. They did not have to. They did anyway. That is the iceberg. 3 people whose names will not be on any deck, but without whom the framework I went on stage with on the 18th of February would not have had the sharpness it had.
What was the audience like on the day?
Exactly the audience I had been writing for all year without quite reaching them at scale. Chief technology officers, commercial heads, product managers, senior executives across broadcast, fast and streaming, people who had been hearing the word nowcasting in passing and finally wanted to sit through 45 minutes of someone explaining what it actually meant inside a schedule, inside a fast channel, inside a commercial break.
And the question you opened with on the webinar was the one that lands every time. If artificial intelligence could tell you what should have aired instead, in near real time, would you trust it?
That question did the work, because the honest answer for most of the room was, not yet. Which then opens the conversation about, well, what would it take? What would the data have to look like? What would the confidence scoring need to demonstrate? What would the human-in-the-loop override process actually feel like for an editorial team? And suddenly, we are not having an artificial intelligence hype conversation. We are having a broadcast operations conversation, with artificial intelligence in the picture as a discipline, not a magic trick.
What changed in the days afterwards?
Everything started moving. I had connections from operators I had been meaning to catch up with for months. Conversations that had been theoretical became practical. The phrase that kept coming up was, "Can we get a meeting in your diary?" Not, "Send me your deck." Not, "We will think about it." Get a meeting in. That is a very different signal.
And the prophecy held.
The prophecy held. Within a week of Chinese New Year, I had 2 genuine pilot conversations. A partnership lead I had been trying to unlock since December suddenly opened up, and a much sharper view of what a productized nowcasting offer would look like. Not the academic version, the version a broadcast operator would actually buy.
Talk to me about March, because there is a stretch in the middle there that always seems to be the hardest in any launch year.
March is where reality bites. The webinar buzz fades. The follow-ups get harder. The procurement processes inside the broadcasters slow everything down, and the work of being a one-person consulting business comes back. Invoices, tax. The website needs updating. The voice agents on the site need retraining. And meanwhile, I am also still delivering for live broadcast clients because that is what matters in all of this.
This is the part where most people quietly burn out.
This is the part where the iceberg matters most. Because in March, what kept me going was not slideware. It was a handful of people who were on the journey with me, people I have repeated calls with, deal advisors who helped me read between the lines on a procurement conversation, introducers who have opened doors I would never have found on my own, a product specialist who has sense-checked the model in a product sense when I was too close to it to see clearly, promo workflow insiders who have told me, plainly, what would and would not survive contact with a real broadcast operations team.
None of these people are on the website.
They are the unsung heroes in different ways, and every single one of them has shaped the year in a way that I will spend the rest of 2026 trying to repay, mostly by paying that same kindness forward to the next person who needs a steer.
And the technology partnership, that has changed too.
That is the other big shift, and it deserves saying clearly. The technology side of nowcasting was a real headache through the early part of the year. Trying to balance the data science build with the broadcast domain work on top of the consulting engine was breaking. In late winter, I solidified a new partnership with Vinay, a long-standing industry colleague, and that genuinely changed the picture. The technology headaches lifted. I could focus on what I am actually good at, which is the broadcast domain expertise, the commercial framing, and the change management around the implementation. They take the engineering. We meet in the middle.
That sounds like it freed up real bandwidth.
It freed up everything. And it is a perfect example of what the vision board was actually pointing at when it talked about invitation. The data science and machine learning relationship did not come from a cold pitch. It came from months of conversation, of mutual respect, of finding people who saw the same problem from the other side of the table. That is what aligned partnership feels like, and you can only spot the difference once you have been through enough misaligned ones.
And the relationships quadrant of the board?
That is the part I underestimated. The board says, do not push closed doors, it is not for you. Make connections with the aligned only. By March, I was starting to feel a pattern. The partnerships that were going to work were the ones where I did not have to convince anyone of the basics, the ones where the conversation started halfway up the mountain instead of at base camp.
That is the invitation idea from the work quadrant in action.
Exactly. The invitation idea is not passive. It is selective. You are still working hard, but you are working hard on the doors that are already cracked open, not battering at the ones that are bolted shut.
So what about the April premonition?
April has been quieter on the surface and louder underneath. The conversations from February have started to convert into shape, pilot scope discussions, data access conversations, that unglamorous stuff that actually precedes a contract. I have had 3 weeks where on paper nothing was visibly happening, and underneath, all the foundations were getting set. And the feeling I had in January that April would matter has held, not in a fireworks way, in a foundation pouring way.
What about the artificial intelligence voice agent work? You have been quiet on that this episode, and I know it is a real strand of the business.
The voice agents are another string to my bow, so to speak. They run websites, and I anticipate them to be going mainstream. They handle inbound enquiries. I have been quietly converting conversations with other business partners on this go-to-market vision. And in March and April, I have started to be clear about this strategy with a business development associate who has her strengths coupled with my technical expertise. So the voice work is not dead in the water anymore. It is starting to integrate with the core consulting offer.
2 product lines then, nowcasting on one side, voice agents and orchestration on the other, and the consulting work that brings everything together.
That is the shape it has taken, and I genuinely did not see that clearly in January. I thought it would be one big bet on nowcasting and a few side projects around it. What has happened is more interesting. The 2 sides are starting to feed each other. The brand is the same. The conversations cross over.
If you could talk to yourself on the 15th of January, sitting at the kitchen table with the marker pens, what would you tell that version of you?
I would tell him 3 things. First, the prophecy is right, but the delivery does not look like what you think it looks like. It is not a single big door opening. It is a season of small alignments that compound. Second, the line on the board about not pushing closed doors will save you more time than any productivity system you are tempted to buy. Trust it. Third, the line at the bottom of the board about building a life that feels good deep within yourself is the actual strategy. Everything else is tactics.
That is a different kind of close for this show.
It is. And it matters because the broadcast industry and the artificial intelligence side of it in particular, is full of founders, consultants, and entrepreneurs who are wearing 12 hats and quietly wondering if any of it is working. If you are listening to this, and that is you, the answer is you cannot tell from inside the storm. You can only tell from the foundation you are pouring, and from the people quietly holding the thing up underneath the water.
Where can people find more on the work itself?
There are episodes earlier in this feed that explain it in operational detail. The OTTRED webinar from February is worth a listen if you want to hear the framework under pressure from a senior media audience. And if you are running a fast channel, a streaming operation, or a broadcast scheduling team, and you want to talk about what a no-casting pilot would actually look like, ancast.co.uk is where to find me.
And the personal note, the vision board itself.
Still on the wall. A little more creased than in January. A few items already crossed off. A few new ones added in different colours. 4 months in, and the line at the bottom is still doing the work. Building a life that feels good deep within myself. That is the real key performance indicator for 2026. And to everyone who is part of the Iceberg under this year, you know who you are. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Broadcast Media, The Inside Track. I am Ben Anker. We will catch you next time.
See you then.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.